the briefing I'm going to go through today is focused on what the federal government is doing to address space weather, how we approach that from the research side and the operational side. So the National Space Weather Program is managed by the Office of the Federal Coordinator for Meteorology. That's the organization I come from. Slide, please. By way of introduction, I'll just go through a very, very brief background. Then I'll tell you what the National Space Weather Program is, some of our activities and accomplishments, and what we're planning to do over the next year or so to keep the coordination and effort going. Slide, please. Every briefing that we have an organization, you have to go through your org chart. So this is how the Federal Meteorological Coordinating Infrastructure is put together, which is managed by the Office of the Federal Coordinator. Highlighted in yellow, you see my boss, Mr. Sam Williamson, as the Federal Coordinator, sitting under the Federal Committee for Meteorological Support and Services. Below that, you see a number of program councils, of which the National Space Weather Program and the Committee for Space Weather, which is the action arm of the program, function. So why is space weather important? I'll go through the slide very, very quickly since Tom did such a great job with that. But I do want to point out there's the reference for the National Research Council Severe Space Weather Events in 2008. That's a quick, good read to get you on a level playing field with understanding. This is a significant threat, and we'll talk about that later. Some of the other examples below are of the more day-to-day impacts. I'd like us not to lose track that, like ordinary weather, space weather affects us every day. The difference being that nobody's hat was ever blown off by the solar wind, as a friend of mine likes to say. So it's invisible, but it's ubiquitous. It has impact on global satellite communications, GPS and GNSS positioning and timing, particularly the timing signal has become so important over time. Satellites and spacecraft operations, and that's both for the mechanisms on orbit and the individuals, the astronauts that are operating in a radiation environment. And from a national defense standpoint, also air defense and missile defense are affected by space weather events. Slide, please. So, there we go. Well, let's talk about the National Space Weather Program. Slide. We like to say in the business that doing space weather is a team sport. In the federal agency, federal government, we have 9 federal agencies involved and have them listed out there. The main players are NOAA, Defense Department, Air Force and Navy, the NASA from their research arms, National Science Foundation, and then a number of other organizations play particular key niche roles. And I would like to point out on the slide that we have the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA involved in the program as well. So the Program Council is made up of members from those agencies, and we have observers also from the White House, Office of Science and Technology Policy, and OMB. And that's a very important connection for the space weather community to be able to reach those levels of government to try to get things going. The council level, they set overall policy for the direction we're gonna go in space weather research and operations. The operating arm is the Committee for Space Weather, kind of the working level, and we have routine meetings. In fact, we had one yesterday, and we try to execute what the council is providing as guidance. Here are the goals of the National Space Weather Program, and at the bottom we have the web link to our strategic plan. And I do want to touch on these before moving on. We run the gamut from discovery and understanding of physical conditions, understanding the science, Secondly, to develop and sustain the observational capabilities so that, on the third bullet, we can provide tailored and accurate space weather information where and when it's needed. It's important also to raise that level of understanding within the public on what space weather is and what it can do. And then finally, is to foster the communication among the agencies, commercial and academic organizations to work as a team. Slide, please. So moving on to our next slide. There we go. Over the last several years, the National Space Weather Program has been working intently with the White House to produce reports examining the space weather phenomenon impact. In 2008, shortly after the NRC study came out, as we all know, that there was the NPOS program, Polar Orbiting Weather Satellite program, that started to get in trouble, and we realized at that point that they were going to de-scope many of the space weather capabilities that they had. White House asked the National Space Weather Program to look at the impact of those losses in observing capability, and also, while we're at it, look at the loss of potential solar wind monitoring capability, which is a direct impact on what we're talking about today. Well, we did okay with that study. Then they turned around the next year and asked us, all right, so it matters. What are you going to do about it? So we did two studies to look at the mitigation options. The first one dealt with the low Earth orbit space environment and recommended two missions. The Cosmic 2 mission, which is a joint U.S. And Taiwan mission to look at the space environment in low Earth orbit, and a DoD mission which has been folded into the Cosmic 2 as well. Also, we did a study on the how do we approach the solar wind monitoring. As Tom mentioned, the ACE, Advanced Composition Explorer spacecraft, is well past its designed lifetime. This report in 2009 recommended the refurbishment of an older spacecraft that NASA had called Discover, which is on schedule to be launched in 2014. Finally, on this slide, in 2011, the White House asked us to do a complete report on our current and planned space weather observing system. This was a requirement from Congress asking the White House to provide that report. We delivered that in September 2011 and updated again in 2012 April, when the DoD's Defense Weather Satellite System program was canceled. That was kind of so we have a national plan for observing. The question is trying to move forward and execute that plan. Slide, please. So we got a lot accomplished in 2012, as we have in years past. One of our major goals has been establishing a sharper point on the National Space Weather Program we like to refer to as the Unified National Space Weather Capability. We are completing an interagency memorandum of understanding between 5 of the NSWP organizations, and it just gives them a better opportunity, a better standing to work together on some of the more difficult problems. So that's moving forward. Should have that done in a few months. Also, within the UNSWC capability, we have an integrated action plan, which I'll talk about. It's basically our to-do list, updated every year. As I mentioned before, we completed the OSTP report on space weather observing systems, so I'll skip over that. We established a National Space Weather Portal website. What is that? Think of it as the one-stop shop to find out what the federal government is doing for space weather, to provide space weather services, research, and across the board. I'll provide the web link in a later slide. We hosted the 6th annual Space Weather Enterprise Forum here at the National National Press Club in Washington, D.C. We have been doing this on a recurring basis. And then we support several workshops and meetings around the area, including NOAA's Space Weather Workshop and the American Meteorological Society. Here's the slide for the portal. You can take a quick look at that. Please do note the simple URL, spaceweather.gov/portal, and give it a visit. Slide, please. Some background information on our 6th Space Weather Enterprise Forum, which we held in June. How space weather will affect you during Solar Maximum 2013. We expect to have the next Space Weather Enterprise Forum again this coming June. Slide, please. So cutting through my overview slide, preparing for the future. Slide, there we go. As I mentioned, we have a strategic plan within the National Space Weather Program. It was based on 185 recommendations over the past 10 years, filtered up through the Committee for Space Weather and approved by the Council. There you see our vision statement and mission statement, and that you can find that in the plan as well. That provides us guidance. Slide, please. To move ahead, establish the National Space Weather and unified National Space Weather capability, execute our integrated action plan, the portal. These are the things I mentioned before. One of the things, two items that I didn't mention in previous slides. We are beginning to work on our strategic research plan. Last month, that's not right, a few months ago, the National Research Council completed its decadal survey on solar and space physics. We've been waiting for that to start looking at the research that we need to conduct within the federal government to advance our understanding of space weather. Also, as part of the NSWP, we try to focus on education and public outreach activities. Slide, please. Over the next year or so, after we get the strategic research plan done, we're going to update our implementation plan. Our last implementation plan was done in 2000, based on the 1995 strategic plan. So into that, we will fold the observing analysis that I mentioned, results from our research plan, all the previous studies that have been done in the last several years, and of course the decadal survey results will help drive that as well. So slide, please. So in summary, we're building on the successes of the program since the mid-90s when National Space Weather Program was developed, and sharpening that point with the Unified National Space Weather capability. 2013 is going to be another very busy year, and we'll continue to move on these items. And if you're available and in town, please come down to the Space Weather Enterprise Forum. We like to do it in June. We'll put out a public announcement, and I'll send that to the folks here to get that to you. So we'll hold questions till the end, I suppose. Thank you very much.